Tonight, Second Take enters two political theaters where coincidence starts feeling mathematically impossible. In Zimbabwe, Precabe Farm becomes the backdrop for controversy involving presidents, businessmen, and alleged wanted figures. In Congo, sanctions, mineral interests, and constitutional extension hints begin colliding suspiciously. Across Africa, citizens increasingly distrust the choreography surrounding power, and we are here to investigate it all. My name is Ashwin Bedi. Welcome to Second Take. Cyril Ramaphosa's visit to Emmerson Mnangagwa's Precabe Farm stopped looking like normal diplomacy the moment Southern Africans began recognizing the faces standing comfortably around the presidents. Because suddenly, this was no longer about bilateral relations, agricultural cooperation, and two heads of state pretending to admire cattle while discussing regional stability. No. The real story quickly became the men orbiting the meeting, the businessmen, the politically connected fixers, the luxury watch patriots who somehow appear whenever Southern African politics starts smelling like smoke coming from a burning tender document. Overnight, Precabe transformed from a private farm visit into a regional political thriller involving allegations, alleged wanted figures, controversial businessmen, and the uncomfortable relationship between political power and wealthy men who always seem permanently adjacent to influence. Then the controversy exploded after reports emerged that one individual around the visit was allegedly wanted by South African authorities. EWN later reported that Ramaphosa's spokesperson Vincent Magwenya said the president had not been aware of the individual's status, which honestly only made Africans ask even more questions.
Both presidents agreed to retreat to President Mnangagwa's farm, where they will engage in a relaxed environment and outside of the constraints of presidential formality and protocol. Over and above the planned meeting, the president was interested in learning how President Mnangagwa is assisting local farmers in the area that neighbor his farm. As the presidency, we've noted with concern the reports that have since surfaced following this visit by the president to Zimbabwe, identifying an individual who is a person of interest to our law enforcement, who was also present during the visit. President Ramaphosa had no prior knowledge of who will be present during the visit, nor was he familiar with the said individual. The president flew to Zimbabwe for a meeting with his counterpart and nothing else. The president will further encourage our law enforcement agencies to continue with pursuing the matters that are under investigation involving these individuals or individual, and to do so with no fear or any form of hesitation.
Because by then, the optics were already politically radioactive. South Africans were staring at photographs of their president casually existing inside an environment allegedly containing figures tied to criminal investigations and controversial business dealings. In many democracies, that becomes a scandal. In Southern Africa, where public trust in political business relationships already survives on life support, it becomes wildfire. People immediately began asking how presidents continuously end up around men permanently followed by allegations, investigations, and whispers of state capture level influence. Then came Wikno Chivayo, and honestly Chivayo has now evolved beyond businessman into something closer to Zimbabwean political folklore. Flashy, wealthy, loud enough to be heard from another province, always somehow standing close enough to power to trigger public suspicion. For years, Chivayo has moved through Zimbabwean politics like a designer-suited ghost attached to tenders, contracts, and controversy. Whether formally implicated or not, his image has become inseparable from perceptions of politically connected wealth accumulation. So when reports linked him to the broader atmosphere around Precabe Farm, ordinary Zimbabweans did not see networking. They saw rich men gathering comfortably, while the public battles unemployment, currency instability, and economic exhaustion outside the gates. Then entered Kudakwashe Tagwire, another enormously influential businessman whose proximity to Zimbabwe's ruling establishment has generated years of speculation, debate, and political discomfort. In Zimbabwean political culture, Tagwire represents that blurry African line where economic power and political power start sharing a toothbrush. His name constantly appears around state contracts, elite financing structures, and ZANU-PF influence networks. So suddenly, Precabe Farm stopped resembling a presidential engagement and started looking like an exclusive continental shareholders meeting for politically connected power brokers, presidents, billionaires, fixers, men linked to influence, men surrounded by allegations, men many ordinary citizens believe can never truly be touched by accountability systems. That is what unsettled people psychologically. Not simply who attended, but what the gathering symbolized. The timing made everything worse. South Africa was already dealing with xenophobic tensions and frustration over governance failures. Zimbabwe remained trapped inside succession anxieties and constitutional extension fears. Yet, while ordinary citizens worried about electricity, jobs, and survival, regional elites appeared gathered comfortably on a private farm, discussing power beside controversial figures. And I am not talking about Wigno Chivayo's love handles.
Namibia is a land of movement, with waves that never stop reaching forward. Here, adventure is not something we search for. It is something we are born into. In every corner of this country, creativity rises, from artists, from athletes, from dreamers. And when the world comes to explore Namibia, they discover something extraordinary. Because when sport moves people, creativity moves ideas, and tourism moves the world toward us, something powerful happens. A platform where movement meets imagination, where industries connect, where opportunity grows, where Namibia's next chapter begins. Welcome to the Creative Sport Tourism Expo. Exhibit, partner, experience. Creative sport tourism.
The Precabe scandal deepened further because Zimbabwean political circles simultaneously began circulating speculation that Ramaphosa may have privately discouraged Mnangagwa from pursuing constitutional term extension politics. And suddenly, the entire farm visit became even more intriguing. Analysts started wondering whether Precabe was actually a high-level intervention disguised as a friendly bilateral engagement involving tea, cattle, biscuits, and carefully staged smiles. If Ramaphosa truly cautioned Mnangagwa privately, it would suggest Pretoria fears another Zimbabwean political crisis spilling economically and socially into South Africa. But even that possibility became overshadowed by the far more emotionally powerful imagery surrounding the gathering itself. Wanted individuals, controversial businessmen, political insiders, while the elites appearing relaxed together while public trust across the region continues collapsing. And honestly, That is why the story exploded. Africans are exhausted by this recurring relationship between political power and shadowy wealth networks. Every country now seems to have these men, business figures permanently close to presidents, men linked to tenders, men surrounded by allegations, but never politically isolated. Men whose wealth mysteriously expands alongside state influence. So when Ramaphosa arrived at Precabe Farm surrounded by these atmospheres, citizens did not interpret it as coincidence. They interpreted it as confirmation of a system they already suspect exists quietly behind official politics. And perhaps that is the deepest discomfort surrounding Precabe Farm. The visit unintentionally exposed the psychological collapse of public trust in modern liberation movement political culture itself. Once these movements represented sacrifice, resistance, and collective struggle, today too many citizens look at gatherings like Precabe Farm and see secrecy, elite networking, and political aristocracy instead. They no longer see revolutionaries. They see presidents surrounded by billionaires and controversial businessmen, while ordinary Southern Africans struggle simply trying to survive another month. People see unemployment, they see migration crises, they see inflation, then they see powerful men smiling together on private estates hidden from ordinary public life. Eventually, citizens stop believing governance is about them altogether. Politics starts looking less like public service and more like a private arrangement between connected insiders managing regional influence quietly among themselves, while the public watches from outside the gate, hoping electricity returns before midnight. The Democratic Republic of Congo has entered that dangerous African political phase where events begin happening so conveniently and so rapidly that citizens stop asking whether developments are genuine and start asking who benefits from the timing. Because within days, the United States sanctioned former President Joseph Kabila, accused him of links to destabilizing networks connected to M23 rebels, strengthened support for Félix Tshisekedi's government, and then, suddenly, Tshisekedi himself began hinting at extending his stay in power beyond constitutional comfort zones. And honestly, in African politics, once mineral deals, foreign powers, and constitutional extension conversations enter the same room together, suspicion immediately arrives carrying a folding chair. Especially in Congo, where politics has never been cleanly separated from minerals, foreign interests, and elite power struggles. Officially, the sanctions against Kabila were framed as part of efforts to hold accountable figures accused of contributing to instability in eastern Congo. Washington accused Kabila of supporting destabilizing networks connected to M23-linked activity and imposed measures targeting his financial and political influence internationally. Publicly, America presented the move as protecting peace and supporting stability in the DRC. Politically, though, the timing immediately smelled fascinating, because the sanctions arrived during an extremely sensitive period for Tshisekedi's government. Congo remains trapped inside insecurity in the east, tensions with Rwanda, domestic political pressure, and enormous international competition surrounding strategic minerals needed for electric vehicles, batteries, and future technologies. Then, suddenly, Washington aggressively isolates the former president while strengthening relations with the current one. In Congo, that kind of timing immediately activates continental suspicion. Joseph Kabila remains one of the most influential political figures in modern Congolese history, whether people admire him or not. He governed for years, delayed elections controversially, and built extensive networks across military, economic, and political systems. Even outside former office, his shadow still hangs heavily over Congolese politics. So the sanctions carried symbolic force beyond legal consequences. America was not targeting some retired statesman quietly gardening somewhere outside Kinshasa. It was directly weakening a former head of state whose networks still matter enormously inside Congo's fragile political balance. Things became even more politically fragrant when Tshisekedi himself began hinting at constitutional flexibility. Reuters reported that the Congolese president raised the possibility of delayed elections or even a third term if insecurity in eastern Congo continued. Officially, he framed the issue cautiously, saying constitutional processes and public support would matter. But Africans have heard this soundtrack before. First comes insecurity, then comes stability language, then constitutional conversation quietly enters the room wearing diplomatic perfume. Then suddenly, term limits become complex. Citizens across the continent recognize the pattern immediately because they have watched it happen repeatedly under different leaders with different accents. What made the moment especially fishy was the sequencing itself. America sanctions Kabila, Tshisekedi strengthens international legitimacy, mineral relationships deepen. Then, constitutional extension language quietly appears in public discourse. To many Congolese observers, it started looking less like isolated developments and more like pieces moving together across the same geopolitical chessboard. Critics immediately began asking uncomfortable questions. Is Washington effectively backing Tshisekedi as the preferred stabilizing partner for Western mineral interests? Is Kabila being politically isolated because he represents uncertainty within that arrangement? And if Tshisekedi becomes strategically useful internationally, how aggressively will foreign powers truly oppose constitutional maneuvering if it guarantees continuity around minerals and regional security cooperation? And honestly, Congo's history makes these suspicions emotionally unavoidable. Congolese politics has always existed inside foreign economic interests. Colonial exploitation, Cold War interference, Mobutu's Western alliances, regional wars fueled partly by mineral extraction, international corporations benefiting while ordinary Congolese civilians suffer endlessly. So when sanctions, mineral diplomacy, and constitutional discussions all begin colliding simultaneously, many citizens instinctively assume negotiations are happening somewhere behind closed doors between powerful people wearing expensive suits and discussing stability. Tshisekedi's defenders argue the Eastern security crisis genuinely threatens national stability and that discussions around electoral timelines are therefore legitimate. They also argue sanctions against Kabila reflect serious international concern regarding destabilization and conflict. But skeptics see something far more transactional emerging. They fear Congo is drifting toward another arrangement where international support becomes tied less to democratic principles and more to geopolitical convenience. Africans have watched this pattern too many times before. Global powers speak passionately about democracy until minerals, military partnerships, or strategic interests become involved. Then suddenly, constitutional debates become internal matters. Stability becomes more important than electoral purity. Language softens, concerns become complex, and perhaps that is why the Congo moment feels so unsettling politically. Not because there is definitive proof of conspiracy, but because African history has trained citizens to distrust political timing involving minerals, foreign powers, and presidents discussing extended stays in office. In Congo, power rarely arrives cleanly. It usually arrives wrapped inside security language, strategic silence, mineral negotiations, and carefully managed international friendships.
Explore the beauty of Namibia with our car rentals. From wide open spaces to the plains of Namibia's national parks, enjoy the freedom of the open road. Go anywhere you want, whenever you want. We've got you covered, even in the most remote locations. Visit our website and see what we have to offer.
This week's TikToks of the week spotlight Yaramel Around, a Mozambican travel creator exploring conflict avoidance in African families and Africa's reputation economy. Through humor and storytelling, her content reflects how silence, social perception, family expectations, and communal judgment shape relationships, identity, emotional expression, and everyday behavior across many modern African societies. Enjoy.
Why do Africans care so much about what people think? It's because we live in a reputation economy. Traditionally, we are guided by word of mouth. So if you have one bad story that sticks, it's very hard to change the way people see you. Many families carry reputation the same way tribes and clans once did, or still do. So we grow up managing how others see us because here, reputation is currency. Someone can be more skilled, but the safer option with a better reputation gets the job. Skill alone is not enough if people don't trust you because they heard something bad about you. That's why people that mess up in their town or village sometimes move to a new one to start fresh. When systems are weak, people become the system and they use reputation to decide. Is it a good thing because it builds trust fast? Or is it a bad thing because you can't always control your reputation? You tell me and correct me if I'm wrong. Why do Africans avoid confronting family members? Well, in many African societies, age is connected to wisdom and authority. So confronting someone older can be seen as straight disrespect, even if it's just communication. This makes younger people stay quiet, even when they have a valid point. But it gets deeper than that. When systems don't work as they should, your family can become your bank, your insurance, your childcare help, your emotional support. People avoid conflict because losing family support can be dangerous. If you live with your family day by day, you can't just cut ties like people do in more individualistic societies. So maintaining peace is practical, but is keeping the peace worth the emotional cost and resentment? You tell me. This is not a trampoline. This is real ground, and the Maasai warriors can jump up to 5, 6, 8 feet just using their legs. It's called adumu, a dance of strength, a dance of pride, a dance to impress women too. The Maasai are one of the most iconic tribes in Africa, known for their unique dressing and a nomadic life alongside wild animals. They're also admired for maintaining their identity and preserving their culture despite globalization. Can your legs handle the Maasai jump, or will gravity win? This is what Pan-African pride looks like in the streets of Maputo. Julius Nyerere is here, one of the longest avenues with the most expensive real estate. Zimbabwe is here, lots of big expensive houses for Zimbabwe. Kenneth Kaunda is here, Zambia had to be represented. Patrice Lumumba is here. What can I say? Free Congo. Mari Ngwabi is also here. Free Congo. Kwame Nkrumah is also here, Ghana's independence icon. Ahmed Skotore is here, Guinea's bold voice. Angola's forward president, Agostinho Neto is here. Amilcar Cabral is here, Cape Verde and Guinea-Bissau's hero. Albert Lituli is here, South African anti-apartheid activist. If your city has either Mozambique or Samora Machel or any other Mozambican name in a street, let me know so that I can be proud as well.
Welcome to Namibia, where adventure meets tranquility. With Enjoy, you have access to a wide range of accommodations to suit every traveler's taste and budget. Experience the finest dining and hospitality Namibia has to offer. Booking your dream accommodation is just a few clicks away with Enjoy. Join thousands of happy travelers who have trusted Enjoy for their Namibian getaway. Your gateway to unforgettable Namibian adventures. Visit us today at enjoy.my.na.
I'm sure you've heard the news, and Namibia is calling. And it's time to answer with a smile. From the rolling sand dunes of Sossusvlei to the wildlife wonders of Etosha National Park, Namibia is a treasure trove of natural beauty and adventure. With Enjoy, booking the most renowned lodges is as easy as a desert breeze. Picture yourself sipping coffee on a deck, watching the sunrise. Paint the sky in hues of gold and orange. Or how about a thrilling safari, capturing memories that'll last a lifetime? Our easy-to-use website hosts the most beautiful lodges Namibia has to offer. Whether you crave luxury or a cozy hideaway, we've got you covered. So pack your bags and let's turn your dream adventure into reality. Namibia awaits, and with Enjoy, your perfect stay is just a click away.
And perhaps that is the real danger now haunting African politics. Citizens no longer only question leaders, they question timing itself. Why sanctions arrive when mineral interests deepen, why constitutional conversations emerge during security crises, why controversial businessmen continuously orbit presidential power. From Precabe Farm's uncomfortable optics to Congo's geopolitical chessboard, Africans increasingly feel politics operates through carefully managed relationships hidden beneath official explanations. Meanwhile, ordinary people continue carrying the burden of unemployment, instability, migration pressures, and collapsing trust. Eventually, citizens stop believing in coincidence altogether. Everything begins looking like negotiation between connected insiders while the public waits outside the gates of power once again. As for us, we'll keep trying to climb those walls. Thank you for joining. Second Take.